Lord Woodbine. Been working for a little while with the Windrush Foundation to put today on. I've been involved here at the Jacaranda for about 15 years. And from the very first minute I stepped through this door, Woody's name has always been mentioned with absolute reverence. And it's fantastic that we're finally going to have some recognition of that in here as well, alongside recognition of Allan and of course the four boys from Liverpool. So I'm going to hand you over to some very special guests we've got here, which is Hudson Phillips, one of Harold's children. Hudson, would you like to come and say a few words?
Good afternoon to you all, and thank you all for coming. The family, I would say, are very happy that something like this is happening today. Because of the recognition afforded to my father, our father, today, because he stood back from everything. He was a part of the Beatles, never shouted about it or told anybody, but he went along with it. But we are very, very happy that this is happening today, and he is getting some sort of formal recognition. So good to see you all here this afternoon. Now I would like to introduce, I have to read because I can't remember anything at my age. I would like to introduce the Lord Mayor of Liverpool, Councillor Barbara Murray. And all the mic for you.
Thank you, Hudson. Can you hear me all right? I'm absolutely delighted to have been invited. I'm only the Lord Mayor for a year, but it's interesting what happens in one's year. And I think this might be the first time I've ever been in the Jacaranda, which is hard to believe, because I've lived in Liverpool all my life and I'm from Liverpool, but I've heard so much about it and the history of the place. So when I heard it was coming here, I was delighted. And I am now going to read, because like Hudson, my memory's not great, and there's quite a few words on this sheet, because your father had a very interesting life, and I think people will be really pleased to hear some of the highlights of his history. So Harold Adolphus Phillips was born in Lavernhill, Trinidad on the 15th of January in 1929. He gave an address at that time of 120 Upper Huskinson Street, Liverpool 8. And I have to say, I'm actually from Liverpool 8 myself, so we're all coming from a good place. Occupation was shown as a machinist, and it stated he had previously been a resident in Trinidad, but was coming to England on a permanent basis. 120 Upper Huskinson Street was also the address used by a passenger number 451 Mervyn Chase, GU, and passenger number 485 George Richardson, both of whom resided in Trinidad immediately before boarding the Windrush. Harold was also known as Lord Woodbine and was a famous calypsonian. He was also a member of Steel Band. So he is a musician, and he's come to Liverpool, the home of music. Much has been written about Harold, and in particular, his connection with Beatles. He worked closely with Beatles, helping them go to Hamburg in 1960 and smuggling in, believe this or not, an underage George Harrison into the German city. He was a musician, promoter and manager, and had been referred to as the sixth Beatle. Along with his business partner, Allan Williams, who is mentioned here, he was the first booking manager for the Beatles and arranged for groups to go and play in the clubs in Hamburg. In 1947, Harold was part of a musical group called the Young Brigade, formed by Lord Kitchener and also included Lord Beginner. They were on a 6-month tour in Jamaica before the Empire Windrush left for England in 1948, and this is a significant vote. Harold had enlisted into the Royal Air Force in Trinidad after December 1944. He was only 15 years old, and using his brother's passport, his service number was 727647. He trained as a flight engineer, probably at RAF Melksham, and was then posted to Burton Wood in Lancashire. After arriving in England on the 22nd of June 1948, he was accommodated at Clapham South Deep Shelter, a former London air raid shelter, for several nights before finding a job as a machinist in Wellington, Shropshire. He worked his way back to Liverpool and married Helen Elise Ina Agoro, born Liverpool the 14th of January 1928 in Liverpool South. And they married on the 19th of November 1949, is that correct? They had met at a Liverpool club called Jokers, while Harold was still with the RAF. Harold and Helen wrote to each other when he returned to Trinidad. So she's probably been the reason he came back to Liverpool, one would suspect. I would anyway. Born in Liverpool, Helen had a white mother from Ashington, Northumberland, and a black Nigerian father. Helen was a singer and sometimes sang with Harold's band. They had one son and 7 daughters. Good-sized family. Only son is here, but several of the daughters are here. I think we've got 4 of your sisters here today. Yep. For John Lennon and Paul McCartney, Harold was the first singer-songwriter that the young musicians had ever met, and as such was their interest that they were for a while referred to as Woodbine's boys. The young lads occasionally played at the Jacaranda on Mondays, the night on which Harold did not perform, so there's no competition here. With the Trinidadian pianist, is it pianist or panist? Panist, yeah, Gerald Coben. I'm not very musical, I just listen. Harold helped oversee the Merseysiders' breakthrough trip to Hamburg. Then, a 4-piece guitar group, the Beatles believed that strings alone were enough to provide a rhythm section. As a percussionist, Harold disagreed and urged them to recruit a drummer, which led to the arrival of Pete Best in August 1960. Allan Williams and Harold booked the Beatles to perform in Germany, with Harold driving the van, taking the band to Hamburg. Despite this, and McCartney's own reference to his old friend Woodbine, Harold barely figures in the Beatles' story. Were it not for the journalist Tony Henry, who accompanied him on a trip to Trinidad in 1998 to make a radio documentary about him, the public would never have heard of Harold's extraordinary life. And what an extraordinary life it was. You know, people, even in those days, moved around the world quite freely. They travelled, they took on other cultures, and I just think here today, your family must be very, very proud of the history your father has brought to you. A dignified man, a musician, and someone, the Jacaranda, which faces a lot of history here in Liverpool, especially around music, is delighted to acknowledge. This event today marks the 25th year of the anniversary of Helen and Harold, and I am very lucky to be asked to unveil the plaque. I think before that, Arthur is going to speak first, though, about the Windrush Ocean generation. So Arthur, would you like to come forward, please?
Okay, thank you very much, Lord Mayor, Liverpool. I must acknowledge, I'd say initially, Graham Stanley, in the sense that we've worked together. We've discussed today, who's going to be invited, etc. And we are very happy that the Lord Mayor is here with us. And I think it is so grand to hear a story of, or a partial story, because it's just a summary, of Harold's journey. Now, Harold served in the Royal Air Force. And, it's quite something to volunteer to serve. Volunteer to serve, he wasn't conscripted. That's important, as a young man. And when we consider that at 15 years of age, maybe going into 16, he was able to pass the RAF exam. And that wasn't necessarily that easy.
He was 14.
He was 14 when he took the exam? Huh? Well, he might have just told them that he was 16. Because they wouldn't have allowed him at 14. But anyway, because usually you've got to be, a certain age. Anyway, it's important. I know Carol has to get everything month and year and right. But the main point is that he served. He came back as a war veteran, as a young man. How many war veterans? When you hear the word veteran, you think of an older person. He comes back on the Empire Windrush, again, as a young man, a young veteran, and as the Lord may have said, he actually spent a few nights at a place called Clapham South Deep Shelter. Now this shelter, those of you who travel on the Northern Line in London, is one layer below the Northern Line. So when you're sleeping, you're hearing the train is passing over your head. That's exactly what happened. That's the journey as such. And eventually, he mentioned the job he got, etc. And he actually settled in Liverpool, which is a great city. Now, I first met him because my colleague Sam King, who created the whole idea of Windrush. And Sam King was 2 or 3 years older than Harold. And then what eventually happened is that Sam King gave me Harold's name and number. Otherwise I wouldn't have known. Sam King had the names of dozens of people who served in the war, who came back on the Empire Windrush. And he was very keen to have a getting together. So he said to me, let's invite Harold to this event. And this is the 50th anniversary of Windrush. We had the event. In fact, the event was hosted by your present King Charles. And at that time, he was just Prince Charles. All right? And what's interesting about the story is that Barbara's over there. I mentioned Barbara, and that was very important. I hadn't met Barbara for a very long time, since 1988. He got older. But the main point there is that event, Harold saw a photograph of himself he hadn't seen for 50 years. Can you imagine? It's a famous picture which you'll eventually be able to see on the internet, where he's standing with some friends, and he's the only one after breakfast. Now, breakfast was in a marquee outside Clapham Common, in the midst of Clapham Common. That's where I had the breakfast. And he was there, and so on. So he said to me, I hadn't seen this picture for 50 years, and at the same time, I was able to introduce Harold and Helen, his wife, to Prince Charles. So, but King Charles III. So they began talking. We have those photographs. That's the good thing about photographs. And I have to commend Jack. Where's Jack? I commend Jack for doing a great job in terms of getting things together, photographs, etc. So at the end of the day, really, an article was published, and the rest is history in terms of Harold and what his involvement, with the Beatles, etc. And today is a great day. Eventually, we'll ask about Mayor to unveil this, and it's going to be important to see what a particular list of contributions that he had actually made. Very important. And he's a son of Liverpool. Son in the sense that he can help young people of all backgrounds to know about bravery and tenacity and doing things and continue doing it, and helping to inspire people. So you'll hear all of that, and at this time I shouldn't be saying too much more. I'm going to get a calypsonian then to finish what I have to say. This gentleman, his name is Alexander, listen to this. Alexander the Great. The full stop great, and that's important. You know, it's a part of his name. You know, but the main thing there really is that he's tucked in that corner over there. I don't know whether the microphone will pick him up, but you'll hear his voice. You can even pop your head there. So you're ready to sing? Alexander is the what we call the Calypsonian in residence for the Windrush Foundation. So let's hear it. The Calypsonian in residence. Here we go.
I need your indulgence, I need your participation. This is Beatles now, right? In a little chorus. Ooh. Tune up. You have to do what would have been yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, man. I see you on the high street Sunday night. Oh yeah, man, I was going to church. Oh yeah, man. So we're gonna practice the chorus. Harold Phillips would sing calypso. Oh yeah, man. Playing steel band and running the show. Oh yeah, man. People call him Lord Woodbine, but true. Woo yeah. Woo. This is I can't do it high. This is Mr. McCartney going. Woo. Right? And if I forgive on the club and jam the band too. One more rehearsal of the chorus, you'll pick it up as we go. Ready? Harold Phillips would sing calypso. Oh yeah, man. Playing steel band and running the show. Oh yeah, man. People call him Lord Woodbine, but true. Woo! And if I forgive on the club and jam the band too. Yes, they did. If I forgive on the club and jam the band too. Here we go. Born live until training died, 1929. Same day as Martin Luther King came Lord Woodbine. His mother arrived from the Spice Isle, made corporate out, while his father hailed from across the bay in Venezuela. Age 14, he took his brother Thomas's passport, joined the RAF, and went to Britain for whom he fought. Trained at Valley, Yorkshire, then he was based in Torrington, where fellow flyers found him to be a Calypsonian. Harold Phillips would sing calypso. Oh yeah, man. Playing steel band and running the show. Oh yeah, man. People call him Lord Woodbine, but true. Woo-hoo. And if I forgive on the club and jam the band too. Yes, they did. If I forgive on the club and jam the band too. The Caribbean airmen enjoyed going to Liverpool. It had a strong black community and the music was cool. They would form a band and enter talent competitions at clubs like Jokers where they would meet other musicians. Harold wrote a song with characters big on cigarette brands. From then he was called Lord Woodbine and the name still stands. Returning in 47 home to Trinidad, he set to work using all the many talents he had. Harold Phillips would sing calypso. Oh yeah, man. Playing steel band and running the show. Oh yeah, man. People call him Lord Woodbine, but true. Woo-hoo. And if I walking down the club and jam the band, you know that they did. If I walking down the club and jam the band too. We toured Jamaica with Lord's Beginner and Kitchener. Then went with them back to England, a fellow Windrush. In Manchester Street, Simon taught Woodbine to play the band. He later ran his own steel band, one of the best in the land. When he managed Club Jacaranda, two boys would come round. asking about 7 scores and that R&B song. They try to play pan and recreate the rhythmical line. We hear it on several songs, and when I hear it, I feel fine. Oh yes! Allan Williams would sing calypso. Oh yeah, man. Play steel band and comedy show. Oh yeah, man. People call him Lord Woodbine for true. Ooh, and the back walking on the club jammy band. They did the back walking on the club jammy band too. John, Paul and George would go down to see Harold play, hearing a new kind of music, playing in a new way. He told them to get a drummer to improve the beat. Beat best was the first, but later Ringo made them complete. Harold drove them over to Hamburg, coaching them out there, when they were just playing covers with quips in their hair. At Arnheim Memorial, they all appear in one photograph, but Harold's been airbrushed out, so history's having a laugh. Allan Williams would sing calypso. Oh yeah, man. Playing steel band and running the show. Oh yeah, man. People call him Lord Woodbine for true. Ooh, and the back walking on the club and jammy band too. You know they did, I said the back walking on the club jammy band too. I was hooked from the front of Help Me Do. That was what it took after that. So my parents, I'm going to be a musician. Dad said, what about Club Dad? I'm like, I was 13 when I heard Help Me Do. My goodness. Changed my whole life. Best band ever. Those boys. Thank you.
Now, what we're going to do now, we're going to unveil the past. And now, this particular unveiling is not the real word unveiling. In fact, you'll be able to see how we're going to get this thing done. And then I can describe it to you later on. So if I can take the mayor, and what we will do, you can just write a step here. And instead of unveiling, we'll be ripping. So it's a matter of your filling and ripping it off. Right. Okay. Now we're going to ask Lord Carol Phillips, Hudson Phillips, they will say a few words of appreciation.
Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you so much, Lord Mayor. For me it's been a hard fight because I've been on this for 14 years and it's so glad to see it come together today. We're with these kids, Pam, Hudson, Carol, Lorraine, Pauline, Susan and Barbara. And we're all very proud. It's unbelievable that we've got to here. It's fantastic. I've had a few drinks. I did shout before, but I'm used to fighting. I fought hard and long for this, so, and I'll pass you on to my brother now.
Thank you, Carol. Being the only brother, the only male in the family. And believe it or not, 6 of them were after me. I was never in. Once again, we'd like to thank you all very, very much for coming down. And it is a big moment, and we do appreciate it. And we do appreciate the Lord Mayor, Councillor Barbara Murray. For coming down and being a part of this. She did very well, may I add. And as my sister Carol has said, it does mean a lot to the family and for the recognition that my father, he would never fall for, never. He just sit back, and I must admit I'm pretty like that myself. But there's not more I can say, but thank you very much, and we do appreciate the support and everyone being down here. Thank you. And the Phillips family.
At least two plaques unveiled. One of them was unveiled for Sam King, the man who came up with the whole idea of commemorating Windrush. And not only that, he kept a list of many passengers who came on the ship. But that's important, you know, because those of you who are, you know, of Caribbean backgrounds who came on ships, I mean, how often do you commemorate when you arrive? Maybe you don't. I don't as a boy. So the point is that it is quite historic that a gentleman, you know, brings his friends together. I know what brought him together? The war. You know, because if there was no war, there'd be no Windrush. Work that out. Because after all, it's a German ship, and the ship was changed from the Monte Rosa to the Empire Windrush, and from what I'm told, it was named after a river, Windrush, in Gloucestershire. And yeah, in Gloucestershire, that's where you have Windrush Village there. And the thing about the whole idea of Windrush, it's become so popular that even the government did a little bit of hijacking, and they took it over and they called it Windrush Day. And again, Sam King is the man who started Windrush Day, and he started way back in 1968. That's when he brought his friends together. I'm not sure whether you know, Allan Phillips was there, but the main thing is a man's vision now. And what we can do, Lord Mayor, is eventually we can have Harold Phillips in schools. We can create education resources, right? And we got David over there, and I'm going to talk to you, David, very soon. But the point there is that there's much to be learned, you know, in terms of a person inspiring any kind of person. He served in the war. He survived. And not only that, you know, he was a flight engineer, you know, and if he made a wrong mistake and don't put a particular screw or something, you know, in an aeroplane or whatever, that particular flight wouldn't be successful. So he was charged with important duties to keep these aeroplanes flying. And again, he was successful, he returned home, and the story as we know it. So, so what we're going to do here now, we're going to maybe ask one or two people to say a few words of appreciation. You have your hand up, so come to the microphone. And give your hand.
Hi, my name's Tony Henry. I took Harold to Trinidad as part of the Windrush celebrations. But before that period, I was averse to the family anyway, because his daughters were great singers and sung on a lot of my records. So when it came to picking someone from Liverpool to celebrate the Windrush, the first person actually dropped out. So we're in a bit of a quandary, and I don't know whether it was Susan or Barbara that mentioned it. I don't know, it may have been somebody else at Radio Liverpool, but he was not trusting of journalists, absolutely not. Didn't trust me one iota. Looked me in the eyes and he just said, so, I've spoken to journalists in the past and they haven't written the truth, so I just don't want any part of it. So to get him on my side, I had to bring him a pile of records that his daughters had sang on. And I said, your daughters have sung on my records. They haven't told me that. So I don't know whether they checked with Susan, and then he came back and he says, okay, I'll trust you. But I bet they don't print what I say. I said, I've got full autonomy of this article. So I've got to thank the Guardian Observer for giving me full rights to put into print his story, and they never touched one word of that manuscript, not one word. I sat down with Harold and we read through it, and he said, they'll never print that, son. And I said, I think they will. And when it came out that Sunday on the, well, there was a little taster in The Guardian on a Saturday, and on Sunday it was a massive article. And it came out and he read it and he rang me 2 or 3 times and he said, thank you. I didn't think they would print all that. And I said, yeah, yes. And then when you listen to the BBC radio documentary, again he said, they'll edit it, they won't put any of that. And then when you listen to the documentary, again he said, they've said everything that I said, yes, I told you. You know, I told you needed to trust me, and he did, and he said, thank you. And we've got to be proud of this gentleman. All the community of Liverpool is for us all, regardless of race, creed, and what he did. We have to celebrate forever and ever. And it's a shame, really, because at the time when we were putting the newspaper article and documentary together, Paul sent a message through, I think, Neil Aspinall, who was his boss, because Linda was dying at the time, or she just died, and he said, I would have got involved, but my wife is dying. So send my love to Woody, and I'm sure we'll meet in the future. And he's kept his word, because I think recently he's spoken to members of the team that are trying to put the documentary together to celebrate this great gentleman. So again, that's all I'm going to say. Thank you, Woody. You'll live in our hearts forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Tony. Now we still have a few minutes, and then we would want people to take photographs with the Lord Mayor as well. We want photographs. Anybody else are itching to say something? Any member of the family? Anybody else of the family?
Hello. Hello, my name is Dr. James McGrath. I work at Leeds Beckett University, and my PhD on the work of John Lennon and Paul McCartney featured a chapter about Lord Woodbine, and it's just humbling to be here amongst the Phillips family and so many friends, old and new. Researching the life of Harold Phillips, Lord Woodbine, was one of the most inspiring academic or scholarly experiences I have ever had. The generosity that the Phillips family have shown to me in sharing their memories with me, in trusting me, in being patient if sometimes I got something a bit wrong or something. I'm so proud to be a friend of your family, and I think there's a lot that will come out on this wonderful gentleman in the future. I think we have a lot of new projects to look forward to. Thank you, all of you, and thank you to Arthur especially.